You know that time you just knew you had to do something, even though it made no sense, and it turned out to be exactly right? Or that other time everything looked perfectly good on paper, but something was off? That was likely your intuition. What on earth does that actually mean? Like, for real? If you're curious about intuition but allergic to woo, I've got a feeling you're going to like this. And just to be clear, this is not anti spiritual, it just simply doesn't assume any particular worldview. My model of intuition works whether you're a staunch materialist, a devout mystic, or anything in between. Let me show you how it works after I introduce you to two lovely people. Miss A had a job interview yesterday. It went pretty well. Actually, it was absolutely amazing, wasn't it? The office was bright, the staff were nice. They called her straight away to offer her the job, actually, and the salary she'd asked for. Everyone was so happy for her. Miss A feels that twist in her stomach again. That sandwich must have been off. Oh, what an amazing opportunity. Her mum couldn't stop talking about it. She'll be able to pay the mortgage early. Her brother will stop teasing her. She'll find a way to make the commute work. She always finds a way. Miss A is very excited. She can tell by the heart flutter. She actually needs to call them back to accept the offer. She'll do that as soon as she's finished reading this book. Mr. B was packing up to leave the office when he remembered that email draft. Interesting project, but too busy, wrong timing, not really his thing. Polite decline. But something stopped him hovering over the send button. His mind kept looping, it's outside your niche, you've already decided, but his gut was telling him something else. Without really knowing why, he deleted the draft and replied instead, "I'm in, let's talk." He felt a wave of chills running through his body as he hit send and knew he'd done the right thing. It was only later, when he reread the project brief, that he noticed a name he'd skimmed past the first time, a researcher he'd admired for years. He'd said yes to the opportunity of a lifetime almost by accident. So what is happening inside these two people as they're considering their next steps? Why does Miss A feel stuck in a flurry of mixed signals while Mr. B is decisive and confident? There's a pattern I've identified in my clients, in myself, and across a ridiculous amount of literature, frankly. And this explains why intuition feels clear sometimes and impossible at other times. Let's break it down. Miss A is obviously rationalizing her excitement. She's explaining her emotions rather than feeling them. At the same time, she's dismissing uncomfortable signals that her body is giving her, and she's delaying taking action on accepting the seemingly amazing offer. There are three experience signals that are contributing to her state. One, her thoughts, beliefs, and expectations about how amazing this opportunity is, apparently. Let's call these cognition to sound smart. Two, her sensations, twist in her stomach, heart flutter, which she is choosing to interpret according to what she wants to believe, driven by her cognition. And three, her emotions, her unconvincing excitement, which is also very much driven by what she wants to believe. And because these three signals are contradictory, with cognition very much suppressing emotions and sensations like a big bad boss, she's stuck in indecision. Let's imagine these three experience signals as adjustable dials or an audio mixing console. A shout out to Alex for the dials idea. We can turn each of these dials up or down in order to obtain a clear overall signal. And we do this by asking, how much attention am I paying to my thoughts, emotions, and my body right now? And how can I spread my attention more evenly between them? If one signal is too loud and the others are too quiet, the overall signal is biased or distorted. Are some of you noticing this in yourselves right now? Perhaps. That's what's happening with Miss A. Her emotions and sensations are suppressed while her cognition is maxed out trying to rationalize everything. What about Mr. B? Well, Mr. B is making a deliberate decision to tone down his thoughts about the project and focus a bit more on his emotions and body signals. His 3 dials might look something like this. Obviously, we haven't put these people through the emotion meter. This is just for illustration purposes, not exact science. Gasp. Mr. B's 3 signals are much better aligned, less contradictory, so he's able to make a clear decision that he's happy with. Even though he doesn't yet understand his own reasoning, it turns out to be an amazing opportunity for him. And here's why this matters in real life a lot. We've seen that we've got 3 key experience signals: sensations, the raw data from the nervous system, including the enteric nervous system, the gut, muscles, organs, fascia, etc. And we may be consciously aware of these, we may be completely oblivious to them, or a bit of both, like with heart rate, muscle tension, or breath. Then we've got emotions, which are the meaning that we assign to sensations depending on the context or environment. And we've got cognition, which is the meaning-making process. Our thoughts, beliefs, memories, expectations, dreams, desires, inner monologue. I bet you know that one. Some traditions might call these body, heart, and mind, respectively. Let's see, where are you in this moment? What sensations do you notice? What emotions are you feeling? What thoughts are running through your head? Are these all more or less aligned or arguing with one another? Most of us live our lives on autopilot, driven primarily by one of these signals, and that's usually cognition. Think smart people who believe everything can be divided and conquered through the mind. Or me, living most of my life like a brain on legs, disconnected from my body and my emotions, burning through achievements like a chain smoker through a pack of fags for breakfast. For those of us more on the impulsive side, emotions usually run the show. We think that's who we are. But whenever one of these signals takes the lead with a bit of a heavy hand, that's usually a protective mechanism keeping us safe from emotional pain. The 3 signals influence each other, and we sometimes explain one through the others. For example, we know from Lisa Feldman Barrett's work that emotions are basically sensations plus cognition in context. What does this mean? The same sensation in the body can be explained through different emotions depending on context. And this is huge for understanding how humans function. It blows my mind every time I think of it. The yummy butterflies in your stomach before that first date are the same physical sensation in your body as your nerves before the exam. Tell me if that's not mind-blowing. So how do you know what you're feeling? Your brain makes a prediction calculation based on the situation you're in. I'm going to a date, so these sensations must be good, right? It better be. I'm going to an exam, and all my life I've been taught that exams are scary. Out comes the anxiety script. And here's where we're demystifying what was never mystical to begin with. Intuition depends on how well balanced the 3 experience signals are in context. Are we suppressing one and cranking up another? Or are we using all 3 sources of information to make our decisions? If the 3 signals are balanced, we experience an intuitive sense of what is right for us, leading to a specific behavior. And that's what intuition actually is, a felt sense of inner alignment. We don't feel pulled in different directions by different parts of us. So we just know what's right for us. That's Mr. B. Because his three signals were not contradictory, he was able to make an intuitive decision and take action accordingly. If these three messages are at odds with one another, as was the case with Miss A, instead of intuition, we get what we might call interference or mixed signals. We've seen that for Miss A, cognition was doing a lot of heavy lifting, really wanting her to feel excited while suppressing her sensations and emotions. Her nervous system interpreted this mixed signal as a threat, therefore went into protective inaction in order to keep her safe. That's basically a dysregulated nervous system, or dorsal vagal shutdown, if you speak polyvagal. Intuition is not some magical skill that only a few of us possess and the rest can forget it. It's a form of insight we access automatically when we take the whole of who we are seriously, emotions, sensations, thoughts, words, and all. Depending on your worldview, you may have your own theory as to where this insight is coming from. Regardless, it cannot typically be accessed when we're in conflict with ourselves. It requires internal coherence. If you're a fan of internal family systems, and if you're a fan of this channel, you likely will be, you know the difference between acting from our core authentic self and acting from fear-based conditioning or protective parts of you. Let's call the latter self-defense, the opposite of self-leadership. That's the difference between I really want to do this thing because I'm very excited about it, and I really want to do this thing because I'll get into trouble or people will judge me if I don't, or people will see how valuable I am if I do. Self-leadership is a characteristic of an internal system that is balanced and coherent, leading to an intuitive knowing of what behavior is appropriate in context. Self-defense, on the other hand, is the result of imbalance between the three experience signals, resulting in behaviors driven by threat and fear-based conditioning. Most people who say they don't have intuition are actually just very good at self-defense. They typically rely disproportionately on their cognition or mind. And often that's because of painful past experiences that taught them this is how we're keeping ourselves safe around here. Not by being our whole beautiful selves, but by self-censoring and contorting ourselves into 1,000 people-pleasing shapes. When I hear someone say, I don't have intuition, what I hear is, I have learned it's not safe to be me. Here's the tricky thing. Those of us with a history of complex trauma have been forced by circumstances to become grandmasters of self-defense. Life taught us that trusting ourselves and being connected to our sensations and emotions wasn't always safe. Hell, for many of us, the only way to survive was to disconnect from our own bodies. No wonder it's so hard to just drop into your body and breathe. How can we when the nervous system is still sending us danger signals locked in by past experience? But the way to that elusive inner peace is not by continuing to fragment ourselves. It's by learning to integrate and embrace all parts of ourselves. And yes, by balancing our emotions, sensations, and cognition in ways that enable us to be true leaders of our own lives, instead of being stuck in bodyguard mode. Let's look at some examples of how this works in real life. Because once you start seeing those dials in action, you can't unsee them. And before we do that, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe if you're finding this helpful in any way, so others can find this content too. You know that old friend of ours, the inner critic? Oh yeah. What happens when they show up? Say you're about to speak up in a meeting. A voice in your head goes, quiet. You're gonna stumble on your words and make a fool of yourself. Remember that time? Your chest tightens, your heart is pumping, your breathing is quick and shallow. You think, I'm scared. This is risky. Yet something in you tells you you must speak up. So what do? You remember the dials. You ask, how am I paying attention to my sensations, emotions, and thoughts in this particular context? Sensations, maxed danger signals. Emotions, maxed fear, shame. Cognition, partially offline. Activated past memories, internalized limiting beliefs, disproportionate focus on staying safe. Context, the past. And this is key. You realize you're not here now. You're in a different place, a different time altogether, likely a long time ago. You understand that the current mix is interfering with your ability to decide what is best for you right now. So you ask, how can I rebalance these signals in this moment? You decide sensations and emotions must be turned down slightly and cognition turned up to include a realistic assessment of the current situation. Different techniques will work for different people, and you will know what works for you. You may focus on slowing your breath, feeling your feet, having a sip of water, and then you may ask, what else can this mean? What part of me is trying to keep me safe? What is it trying to keep me safe from? What do I know for sure is true in this moment? And what do I need right now? Now, this needn't take more than a few seconds, and it does get easier with practice. What we're doing here is nervous system regulation and moving from self-defense back into self-leadership. And this will allow you to access that intuitive felt sense, enabling you to make a decision that is right for you in this moment, in this particular situation. In this example, that may be to speak up or not. Either way, it will be an informed decision based on balanced integration of all the experience signals plus contextual discernment. For more on this, feel free to have a look at my video, There is no well-being without authenticity. Once you've seen this pattern, you start noticing it everywhere. Take overwork, for example. You think you're ambitious, you've got a strong work ethic, or that's just what you have to do. But you're also drained, resentful, and secretly fantasizing about the world's naughtiest nap. Cognition is cranked up all the way, while sensation and emotion are barely registering. Your intuition is drowned out by interference from one dominant signal. Or take emotional flooding. Your nervous system fires a danger signal, emotion surges, and suddenly you want to punch someone in the face. You don't because cognition steps in to say, maybe not. That pause is enough to rebalance your system in real time. Different situations, same mechanism. So then the question is, how do I know which state I'm in moment to moment? And what does intuition feel like? You may have heard intuition can be quiet and subtle. So let's look at its noisier opposite first, interference, which is much easier to recognize. When there's imbalance between emotions, sensations, and cognition, usually with one of them hogging the bandwidth, we are firmly in self-defense territory. There's effort, there's pressure, there's a sense that something bad will happen if we don't act or if we don't stop what we're doing. Attention narrows, we may be unsure how to proceed, or we may feel a sense of urgency. Brain may be looping, justifying, second-guessing, bracing. We may feel pulled in different directions by different parts of us. We may be motivating ourselves to act with various carrots, sticks, and thinly veiled threats. There may be bias and wishful thinking driven by fear and dissociation. And we're constantly monitoring ourselves. Am I doing this right? How will this look? What will they think? Even when we're alone, it can feel like we're constantly being watched. Intuition, on the other hand, comes with space to breathe. When we're paying proportionate attention to our emotions, sensations, and cognition, there's room to feel what is happening without an immediate urge to fix it. Even if there are nerves or uncertainty, there's a sense of agency rather than pressure. I am choosing to do this, not because I have to, because it's the right thing for me in this moment. Action flows naturally without forcing or pushing through. We feel inspired to act. No need for internal bribes. Things feel easy, fun, effortless. There are no problems, just challenges and opportunities for learning and growth. There's also much less internal commentary. We're not performing, we're not trying to convince ourselves or anyone else of who we are. We just are. And that, my friend, is self-leadership. And if you're unsure whether you're experiencing interference or intuition, here's a simple question for you. Am I protecting myself or am I leading myself? And a bonus question, am I having fun? If you'd like some support getting back in touch with your intuition in a grounded, self-led way, I have some availability for coaching coming up. And if you're more of a DIY type, I also have a self-paced self-leadership course you might want to check out. Links in the description box. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again when it feels right. Bye.